So Dennis, I really appreciate that the first thing that you typed was you can't make fun of anyone tonight now because you know what goes into it. Because I'll tell you, man, sometimes like there's days where I'm just like trying to get this stuff together, and like it just seems like nothing. Like we run into all kinds of problems, but think we got everything all set today. Well, with the exception of Mark. Apparently, Mark's internet's out right now, and so I was on my way back from work, and so Caleb just asks him, "Oh, you got a storm or something?" And Mark just goes, "Nah, sometimes it just goes out." There are 16 houses that don't have internet right now, so I guess they have a team working on it. Uh, but Mark Mark lives that country life, so we'll see. We'll see what happens there. And then our boy the Wolf is still out with his back issues. However, I know there is good news on the horizon. As I did hear that he's got another procedure scheduled that should hopefully help him out and help him get through his pain issues. But you got me and Caleb. We're on the wrong lead. You got Caleb there on the left. I am Cherry Drank, aka Josh, here on the right. We are gonna go through our Belmont card here. Um, we were gonna go through all the stakes races, but I mean the first stakes race. This let me scroll up so I can get the name of it. The
Victory
victory
ride.
ride. Yeah, 3-year-old filly sprinting. Um, I mean, I have a very, very hard time trying to get around Frank's Rocket here, and we've already been made fun of multiple times for uh, spending way too long on a 3 to 5 favorite that's just going to win going away. But I don't know if you really got anything else to add to this race here, Caleb. I mean, I think Frank's Rocket just towers over this field.
Yeah, I agree with you. She seems like the best horse in the race. She has the perfect pace set up for her. She has the inside draw. It's just tough to see a way that she doesn't win here. Like the Chad Brown horse, the 4, I guess, is lightly raced. Ran a really nice fig in her debut. I guess you could argue that maybe she bounced a little bit off that effort and might get back to a nice number today. But yeah, I really think that Frank's Rockette's going to be hard to beat here.
Yeah, the 4 center aisle. I mean, I think that's like the only other horse in here that you could maybe make a case for. Um, and even then, I mean, I don't know. They ran really well at 6 furlongs. They stretched her out to 7 and wasn't even remotely close to the same type of effort. Started off real slow, lugged in. I mean, those are the kinds of horses that will improve, I think, with more experience. So maybe we'll see a little bit more later in the year from Center Isle. But Frank's Rocket, I think, is just seasoned and I mean, should walk here. I think 3 to 5 is probably going to be generous. I think we're probably going to be closer to 2 to 5 or 1 to 5. It's going to be real short.
Right.
Yeah. Uh, Evil Bob Dole says they brought her to Belmont, so she has a chance to win. Can't do it at Saratoga. I don't know about that. What's a big 3-year-old filly sprint race at Saratoga?
What do they have? Is the Spinaway? No, that's for
2-year-olds.
2-year-olds. I don't know.
See, this is where we need Mark, because Mark
That's
knows
already Mark. He
Saratoga.
would
Yeah,
know that.
he would know. He'd
Oh
be like,
yeah.
"Oh, you got this. You got this grade 3, the grade 3 at the beginning of the meet, and then
Yeah, on the third Thursday in July.
yeah." So, but yeah, I have a hard time getting around it, and I don't know. It's just not an interesting race. Just 5 horses and one towers over the field. I guess you could make a case for a B or C play with the 4, but I think that's just one where you take the free square and just kind of move on. But moving on to the 8th race, the poker. This is a really interesting race. I've actually this is probably the race. This is probably the race that I've been most excited to hear what you and Mark thought. Unfortunately, Mark, obviously with his internet, not here. But Caleb, why don't you walk me through here? Walk me through the poker here.
Yeah, this is a fun race. I agree with you for sure. So I think the way I looked at this race was more or less going to be based on how the turf is playing. For the majority of this meet, the turf has been pretty speed friendly. And it's also last weekend been a pretty big advantage to be drawn toward the inside when they took the rail down and were running on the hedge. So this says the rail is going to be back out to 9 feet. So I think that should probably go away. We'll see if speed is still pretty good, which I assume that it will be. So my top picks in this race, assuming it's a firm turf course, my top pick was the number 7, Got Stormy. I actually don't have any morning lines, so I don't know if she's the favorite or not.
7-2, not the favorite.
Okay, so yeah, so you kind of have to forgive a few of her later efforts where, like I talked about her last time, I think in the Just a Game Stakes before she scratched out of it, is that she's a true miler. She doesn't want a mile and a 16th. She doesn't want a mile and an eighth. She wants a mile. And I think this distance is perfect for her here. And she wants a firm turf course. She doesn't really want any give in the ground. So if they get some rain, even if the track is still listed as fast, I might kind of audible my opinion here. But if you look back at who she was running against, she was beat the boys in just a freak race at the 4-star Dave. Came back and ran second in the Woodbine Mile, once again against the boys. Came back and ran second in the Breeders' Cup Mile, losing to who at the time and arguably still is the best turf miler in the country in Uni, crushed the matriarch next out at Del Mar. And then things got a little wonky when she went to Tampa and tried doing a mile and a 16th and just came up a little bit short in the stretch. Then she went out to Santa Anita for the Frank F. Kilroe and ran a nice race, just got run down by a horse that tripped out that day in River Boyne, who ended up putting together a nice win streak of his own. Then she came back in the Boguet once again, just going a little bit too far off of a 3-month layoff and just came up empty in the stretch once again. So I think if she gets a firm turf course, I don't see a ton of other speed. The only other real speed I see in this race is the one Dream Friend, who I do actually find pretty interesting and I'll probably use in some fashion here. But I think she hits a perfect trip just off the speed. And then kicks for home and should be able to hold off the likes of a horse like Value Point or Value Proposition, maybe Valid Point or Value Proposition. I will be spread here, but Got Stormy was one of my 2As, but I'll give you a chance to expound on that a little bit, Josh.
Yeah, I mean when I first saw this and I saw the field here, first of all, I fucking hate Valid Point. Because Valid Point cost me a ton of money at at Arlington Day. That was at that Chad pick 5, and
Yeah,
I had the Chad pick 4, but that 5th race I was like, this is the race I got to beat Chad, and that was like the one horse I left off. I think I had like 2nd through 5th in the pick 5, so it was just like, fuck that horse. But I was actually all over Got Stormy in the same spot. I think that Got Stormy is just the classiest horse in this field. The matriarch, the 4-star Dave. I mean, the Woodbine Mile is probably I guess you could say the one kind of mark against her record. I'm not going to hold too much against her for losing in Santa Anita against literally the turf miler that can only win at Santa Anita in River Boyne. So I'll give her a pass losing there. But yeah, I think that like you said, the distance is going to hit Got Stormy right in the middle of the eyes. Is going to be if we get nice firm course. I don't see a way that that this could set up any better for her, especially without there being a ton of speed. I kind of saw it the same exact way as you, and I got the track bias and all this stuff up here. I'm gonna cross off the 8 here, or the 8 here, because it's the MTO, and we're just gonna assume that we're on the turf, obviously. But yeah, if you take a quick look at here, I mean, Dream Friend is the speed, but Dream Friend has just shown to be very, very cheap speed. The other horse that does interest me a little bit might be Social Paranoia. My only concern is I think Social Paranoia probably needs a little bit more pace to run into. Is 1 for 1 at the distance, but it was a grade 3, and I think that even though this is a grade 3, I think this came up a bit saltier than that grade 3 that she won against Sombaye and March the Arch. So I think those are the two horses I'm going to go with as kind of like my A horses. I think if you are going to go, ABC here, you got to include the Chads in some way, shape, or form. But I mean, Valid Point won the Secretariat, which, 3-year-old mile turf horses. I mean, that's not really a division that we get a lot of like real competition, like great horses for. I wouldn't be surprised if I don't think they're running the Secretariat this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if next year it gets graded down to like a grade 2 or grade 3. I just don't think that it's a very useful division or very useful race. So even though Valid Point's got a grade 1 win, I'm kind of not really seeing it as a grade 1 race, not like the races that Got Stormy has won. And then, I mean, you got a couple other horses in here. You got the other Chad, Value Proposition, and kind of the same thing. Like, yeah, is on a two race win streak here, but I just think class wise, Got Stormy just towers over this field in class. And when it comes to turf, I always value class a little bit more than I do in dirt. In dirt, I'm all about betting cheap speed that's moving up in class, but here I'm not going to try and overthink this. I think I'm just going to go with Got Stormy and heavy and be very heavy on Got Stormy, and maybe use a little bit of Social Paranoia just to get another horse in there, and then use the Chads either underneath or as B types, or if I get skinnier elsewhere, I'll include those Bs kind of into my wider ticket there.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I will say this is a race where I think you could make a case for literally every horse. Like there isn't a single horse that I look at in this field and say like this horse cannot win. Maybe a horse like the 6, like Eons, is a little bit hard for me to get to, but like it's not like I would say that horse is an automatic toss by any means. In fact, probably two of the horses I like the least in this field are both the Chads. I don't care for value proposition. I'm assuming both of those horses are in the 5-2 to 7-2 range.
They're both 5-2.
Yeah, and like value proposition, he had a good pace setup last out where he got a hot pace to run after, and he won an optional claiming race. And he's going to be favored over a multiple grade 1 winner and Got Stormy. Some horse that's won 2 optional claimers and a maiden.
Yeah, like, actually, value proposition is 5-2, Valid Point 7-2. So value proposition is the favorite here,
which to me is crazy, especially with the outside draw. And then you get Valid Point, who was a probably just overly precocious 3-year-old that stepped up to face Older for the first time in the Shadwell Turf Mile at Keeneland and just got absolutely trounced. Is probably one of the worst favorites of 2019. So I don't really care for either of those. I guess Valid Point could have taken a big step forward, being halfway through his 4-year-old season now, and maybe makes more sense here. And he does have probably a little more tactical speed than the stablemate value proposition, but I don't love either of them. I think the one is interesting is the true speed in the race. I'd probably need to see a speed bias before I look to really include that horse. But if it does turn out pretty speedy, I think that's one you have to at least consider. Your pick on Social Paranoia, I think, makes a lot of sense. I've actually really liked this horse for a long time. I don't really knock the horse for losing to Halliday 2 back at the Gulfstream race. Halliday was loose on the front and nobody was going to make up ground that day. But the last race out in the Fort Marcy, I don't know if you watched it. Maybe I need to see the replay, but just not a great effort from Social Paranoia that day. And that's 2 in a row where hasn't ran quite the same level as those previous races that really were eye openers, specifically the Appleton, where he just looped the field and exploded. So that's one that I do like and I could see win, but I'm a little unsure which direction he's going on form wise. But Yeah, I definitely understand. My long shot pick here, who I like a ton actually, is going to be the 3 Hawkish.
I was just gonna
Um,
ask you about the three. That's funny.
I really like this horse. Now I get it. James Toner's had a rough 2020. He's 0 for 23. Um, but if you look back, this horse is another one of those true milers that just loves going a mile. The horse has 5 starts at a mile, 4 wins, and 1 second place. It's hard to do much better than that. And then if you look at the last 2 races, Hawkish came in on a really long layoff at that May 9th race at Gulfstream, where it was kind of off slow and just didn't really pick up his feet that day. Looks like he had some trouble in the start and just didn't really do much running. Then comes back in a 7 furlong race at Belmont about a month ago, and kind of breaks slow and then makes a nice closing run, but just sort of runs out of racetrack and ends up getting beat about 2 or 3 lengths. This has that kind of classic third off the layoff, back to the right distance kind of feel, where you're getting a jockey upgrade for an off the pace horse like this. Carmouche and Jaramillo are both fine jockeys, but they're both much better on the front. I definitely like Manny Franco better with an off the pace ride. He now gets third off the layoff here at the perfect distance. Looks like he's been working out pretty sharply. He's got that bullet work June 21st on the Belmont turf around the dogs. And I just think this horse makes a lot of sense. You could argue that he hasn't really been the same as his 3-year-old season when he really made his big splash, but at what I assume is going to be a nice price, he will need a little bit of help with the pace. So it would definitely help his cause if a horse like Dream Friend and Got Stormy can kind of hook up and string him out a little bit. But this horse hasn't always been a dead closer. It had some tactical speed, and Manny Franco's ridden this horse to a win before. So that's a horse that I think could be really overlooked between all the Chads and other Horton the Pletchers in this field, and might be the one who can step forward third off the layoff and pull off the upset.
Yeah, I actually was looking at the three quite a bit before we jumped on here, and I was really trying to make a case for him, and I'm like, I don't know, like 4 for 5 at the distance, but I was like, it's kind of going back and forth. I mean, I do see a bullet work in July 20, or June 21st, so maybe the horse is rounding into form that third off the layoff, and what I mean, at least the speed figures kind of improved each time since the layoff. So, and it looks like at least the horse has kind of had a steady improvement. Going back 5 races, 6 races, just so maybe he is kind of rounding back into form, improving every start out. Yeah, I mean, we'll. I think that this horse definitely does make sense as more of a long shot play. If the turf is not as speed favoring as it has been, I think you can definitely make a case for Hawkish, especially at a price 12 to 1 on the morning line here. We'll see what kind of price we get. Let me take a quick look at chat here. Missed a little bit. So Road Warrior looks like he says that the test is a grade 1. He believes. So I'm guessing that's
Yeah, that's a
probably
7 furlong race with
yeah.
Serengeti Empress and Kovefi kind of blitzed it last year. I
Yeah,
remember that.
yeah. So that one's probably like the big sprint race there. Dennis says he's on Valid Point, which I think we talked a little bit. Evil Bob Dole wanted to make sure that we include Grade 1 winner River Boyne in that name there.
Professor F for respects.
Yeah. John is saying that he's interested to see the heaviness of thunderstorms over the next couple days. I played a little bit of Belmont today. I was going to play tomorrow. I'm off, so I'm going to play a little bit more tomorrow. But I didn't see any rain today. Is it supposed to rain the next couple days? It looks like.
I haven't checked the weather. It was pretty dry today, but it feels like every weekend Belmont gets rain this meet, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it looks like Road Warrior again said 80% chance of rain tomorrow. So if you're playing that July 3rd card, be ready for sloppy track. Get those wet Tommies out. Yeah, heavy. It's supposed to be heavy rain tomorrow. So, but I guess nothing on Saturday. So that's good.
We'll probably come off the turf tomorrow to save it for Saturday.
Yeah. So Dennis did want to talk about Valid Point a little bit more, but mostly because he thinks that Shadwell Turf Mile, that he had a little bit of trouble, had to steady a little bit, and then weakened, and then oh, look at what we have here. Hey, you got your internet back, huh? Oh,
Either that or
uh, he's got
with the
internet
neighbors.
back, but he didn't get his microphone on. Oh, is he doing a swish and spit there? What is he doing? We'll let Mark get his stuff settled there. Um, but yeah, so Valid Point did run into a little bit of trouble, did steady. Um,
Yeah, from memory, I think he was already fading and just kind of he ran 10th by 3 because he had to check late where he was going to maybe instead run 7th by 2.5. I don't think it really made a difference and didn't cost him much in that spot.
I do remember that. I believe that this was the race where you just absolutely hated Bowie's Hero, and you're like, I am never betting this horse because I think it was a West Coast horse shipping
Yeah, I was a
east.
California turf horse
Yeah,
coming east.
yeah.
I was on Diamond Hoops that day actually at a
Oh,
pretty
that's
huge
right.
price,
Yeah, we were both on Diamond Dupes.
and he ran
Yeah.
second.
God damn it. Oh, looking at these damn past performances. Um, let's see. Mark's gone. Uh, let's see. Oh, here he comes again. No, why are you shaking your head? Why are you shaking your head, Mark? All right, we'll get Mark's thoughts on the poker here, when we come back. Give me 1 second here. Okay, let's scroll down here. All right, so race 9's the big one. Well, I mean, I think everybody thinks this is the big one. I know we have another like classic distance race, I think, later on in the card, but this is usually probably one of the top 4 or 5 races of the year. The
Usually, yeah.
the Run Happy Metropolitan Handicap, otherwise known as the Met Mile. Mark, did you fix it?
Got it fixed.
Oh, you got it
There we
fixed.
go.
All
He's
right.
back.
All right, Mark, give us your 10-second thought on the poker.
On the poker? Oh,
Yeah.
jeez. I don't know if I have a 10-second thought on the poker.
All right, we'll come back to you then. let's move on here to the Met Mile. Yeah, I mean, this race is loaded, and I was kind of surprised that that Improbable didn't show up here. But even without Improbable here, this is a really freaking good race. This is probably the we got a good combination, I think, of a couple of like 7 furlong types trying to stretch out, and we got a couple of horses that have done a little bit better at maybe longer distances, shortening up a little bit. So I think this is going to be a super interesting race here. Mark, you ready to jump in, or do you need a minute?
Mark's audio went out again.
Oh no, Mark, what are you doing? All right, let's. I guess I'll take a quick look here. I have a hard time getting around McKenzie here. I know I think I've said before that I'm very interested in betting Improbable at the Dirt Mile. But apparently, at some point in time, Improbable, I think, turned into a classic horse, winning that. What was the race? The Big Cap. Was it the Big Cap, or was it?
No, Gold Cup.
The Gold Cup. Yeah, the Gold Cup. There we go. How can those freaking those races are the same name? So it won the Gold Cup there at Santa Anita, or the Hollywood Gold Cup, as it used to be called. So maybe they're thinking classic now with Improbable. But I mean, McKenzie probably should have won this race last year. I guess a case could be made that no one was beating Matoli that day. But Mike Smith gave a bit of a head scratching ride, I think, on McKenzie, and didn't give McKenzie the best shot to win. I think we've had this discussion before. I think we've always kind of known that McKenzie's a little bit distance limited. Don't really think that he wants, the mile and the quarter. I think a mile and the eighth is pretty much it for him. So like no surprise, came up a little bit short in the classic, and I mean, it did take a Herculean effort from Vino Rosso with like the negative like 20 or whatever he got in the sheets. But yeah, I mean, it's hard not to think that if McKenzie comes back into his best form from last year, that he's not the best middle distance horse here. Mile to mile and 8th, mile and 16th horse. Mike Smith's getting back aboard, and after getting taken off for Joel. And I think I'm gonna kind of have a hard time getting around McKenzie. McKenzie doesn't really need to lead. Wants to be forwardly placed. You got a couple of more need to lead type horses in Warriors Charge and Mr. Freeze here. I don't think there's enough speed in here for this thing to completely melt down. But I think I'm gonna kind of fade off the true speed horses here. And I think I'm going to be looking more towards a McKenzie type, or maybe like a Vekoma type, or maybe even something even longer price, like maybe like a Hog Creek Hustle or something coming off from way off the pace. I don't want to say the other horse's name that I really, really do not like, but I'm sure one of you three have, or one of you two have picked that horse. But I think I feel pretty good being covered to the two shortest prices here in McKenzie and Vekoma. I like to bet those extreme pace scenarios here, but this just sets up for, I think, horse that's going to be within like 2 lengths of the lead, and makes that move on the turn and just kicks away. And I think McKenzie is it, but Vekoma's last race was very, very impressive. And I kind of have a hard time leaving Vekoma out here. So what do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you here, and I would imagine the horse that you were leaving off that you didn't want anyone to mention his name would be Mr. Freeze, huh?
No, Code of
No?
Honor. Code of Honor. No.
Oh, that's where you went. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, you wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole.
I mean, and like Code of Honor, like I think is a nice horse, but I think Code of Honor probably wants longer. I don't think a mile is going to do him any favors here.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think Code of Honor probably wants longer, but he's going to take quite a bit of money in here. And albeit he does love Belmont, and has won at the distance, I do think he wants to go a little further. Now, I mean, I think the 3 horses that I'm interested in, and will be most favorably utilized on all my tickets, would be Vekoma, Mr. McKenzie, and Mr. Freeze. I think. I do tend to agree with you. I think that McKenzie's a little bit distance challenged here. That last out of Vekoma was really impressive. Horse has got a ton of layoff lines, which is a little scary. This is going to be a very rare second start without another layoff line. But I think for me, yeah, and I tend to agree with you on the pace setup. I want somebody who's forwardly placed. I don't want somebody coming from out of the clouds, which sort of removes Hog Creek Hustle from my usage. Track's been playing pretty speed favoring. There's no rain or anything that's going to make it funky in the forecast. So to me, it goes through those 3, and I have a hard time getting creative beyond that.
Yeah, I generally agree with both of the picks that y'all have thrown out. To me, I think there's 5 horses that can win this race. Like, you obviously have the big 3 being Vekoma, McKenzie, and Code of Honor. And then I think that Mr. Freeze and Warriors Charge both have a shot. Of the big 3, I like McKenzie the best. This is a horse I've not been the biggest fan of historically. But I've always thought the horse was better going shorter. My biggest knock was always that he's not a 1.25 mile kind of horse. And he's really a great miler, maybe 1 1/8 miles. Both of his races at 7 furlongs in the Malibu and then coming back in the Triple Bend were visually just super impressive. He won them under a hand ride both times, was ridden out. So I think he is the horse to beat here. Vekoma is the improving type that I think you want to look for. The one who you just don't know how good he is or how good he can be. I don't expect McKenzie to really take a step forward anymore at this point of his career, whereas Vekoma, we don't really know how good he could be. I don't think 1 mile will be a problem for him. I don't think he wants to go much farther than that, but I don't think 1 mile is a big issue for him. And that last race was really good. But Code of Honor is the one that I think I was kind of against him last time, thinking it was a prep race, and he kind of made a fool out of me. He won that race with the race flow kind of not going in his favor as well, with somewhat of a slow pace up front. So I don't really know. Like, once again, I don't see a ton of speed here. Out of the big three, he's the one I want the least. But I don't know that I'm going to let him just totally beat me. He is a really nice horse, and other than the Breeders' Cup, where he just didn't really get over the Santa Anita surface, which was playing a little bit quirky last year, I think it's really hard to totally toss the horse. But then, after the big three, like I said, you pretty much have your pick of which of the speed horses do you like. I kind of lean towards Warriors Charge personally. That's kind of the long shot I like. If you get anywhere near, what is he, like 8-1 in the morning line?
12-1.
Jesus, 12-1. You'll probably get somewhere in the 6-1, maybe 8-1 range.
Yeah, because like last race he got bet down. We thought we were going to get a good price on him, and he got bet down a ton, right?
Yeah, like he won't be better than third choice by any stretch with the big three in here, but he very well could be fourth pick in like that 6 to 8-1 range. So that's kind of where I would expect him. I don't think he'll get 12-1, but I think he is your textbook leader. Mr. Freeze is a horse that historically has been a leader, but hasn't made the lead in his last two races, whether it's due to tactics or just race dynamics. And I just don't think he's as effective coming from off the pace. So I think given the potential pace setup, and if the track does turn up a little bit speed friendly on a big day, Warriors Charge should be alone on his front for the better part of 6 furlongs. So is he good enough to hold off McKenzie and Vekoma and Code of Honor late? I don't really think so, but it wouldn't be a total surprise. He's also shortening up to a mile after getting caught by my standards late last out. That horse came back to run a nice second to Tom's d'Etat, who's the best older dirt horse in the country right now. So he's a horse that I don't really knock. Like, I think he makes a lot of sense. He's probably the perfect kind of B horse to use in a horizontal or a key horse in the bottom half of an exacta or trifecta to see if he hangs on for a piece.
Yeah, I wouldn't fault you for using him underneath, but I mean, doesn't he really set the same trip that Vekoma does? I mean, I don't think he's that much faster earlier than Vekoma is, and I think in Vekoma is just better late. So don't they both kind of set the same sort of trip? And if anything, set up McKenzie a little bit. But I mean, also, I don't see either one of them getting loose here. I don't see either one of them getting super comfortable in the front end. So, I think to Josh's analogy, it probably, the more I think about it, sets up a McKenzie even more. Although I do think you kind of have to use Vekoma in here somewhat, albeit if you're even approaching it defensively.
Yeah, like I think they're similar, but looking at it, like I get it, comparing sprints and routes isn't exactly the same thing, but like Vekoma's never made the lead at the first call, whereas Warriors Charge has made the lead in his last like 6 or 8 races. I think Warriors Charge makes the lead here. I don't know if he gets 3 lengths loose, but I think he gets the lead. I think he needs the lead, and I think Flo is going to kind of ensure that he does secure that early pace advantage. Whereas I think Vekoma is probably happier to just sit second and tuck inside behind Warriors Charge, and would be even happier if Mr. Free sends and he can sit that pocket trip third.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to pick one of the speed horses, I think I'd feel much more comfortable with Warriors Charge than I would Mr. Freeze, because I feel like there's really, like, those are the two horses that are going to want the lead. But if you do look back a little bit through Mr. Freeze's PPs, there's been a couple of races where he sat, half length or 1 length off, was fine sitting second or just sitting, just like right on the leader's hip, and then making his move and passing. So he's won a couple of speed duels like that. But I think that if he gets into that type of trip, that's just going to set up even better, I think, for like a Vekoma or a McKenzie. I think that if Mr. Freeze doesn't get the lead here, and doesn't get, an easy lead, I don't really see how he wins this. And I think Warriors Charge is just going to be faster. And, it's always hard to knock a horse that's going to get the lead. In a race that isn't going to have 3 or 4 horses that are going to be really, really fighting for it. So like I don't really know what kind of trip Mr. Freeze is going to get. I know Warriors Charge is going to grab the lead, or is going to. I mean, unless Flo just like loses his mind, but he's ridden this horse 3 times and has gotten the lead every time. I don't see any other horse that's going to get the lead but Warrior's Charge. Might not be a clear lead, might not be loose. I'm guessing that he duels a little bit with Mr. Freeze, but I think out of those two horses, I would much rather try to either key something around or use as a B Warrior's Charge than Mr. Freeze. I mean, you can't knock Mr. Freeze's class, and is 2 for 3 at the distance. But I just think Warrior's Charge is faster early, and I think that that's going to set up a little bit better. But I still have a hard time getting past Vekoma McKenzie here.
Yeah, to sort of poke at Josh a little, and also to answer something that Dennis was talking about. Flo has been on Warriors Charge 5 times, and the last 4 times he's been on the horse, he's been first at first call. So, I mean, Flo is a passive jock. He's known as being a more passive jock, but he seems to send pretty hard with this one and always sort of make the lead. So I wouldn't think that anybody else other than Warriors Charge is on the lead. I think you may have, Vekoma sitting right there with him, but I think Warriors Charge is your the speediest of the speeds, although he's not, I don't think, fast enough to clear, which is my concern with him. Oh, and also John Massey is saying that he predicts that Hog Creek Hustle has to try. And honestly, I could see a situation where that happens, where Hog Creek, sucks up and gets third if it comes apart. Hog Creek does like to do that. He does like to hit the board. Obviously, he did have one very, very, very impressive win at Belmont where the pace absolutely collapsed. I don't think he gets that here, though.
Yeah, I think people have been betting Hog Creek off of his Woody Stevens win for the past year, and I think it's probably time to maybe let that one go. I don't think he's a 7 furlong horse. I'm putting him in the winner's circle. I know it, but I don't see him hitting the board.
His Jerkins was really impressive too. I mean, he freaking almost got there over Chancelot, and just got not mind control nosed him. So
yeah.
But yeah, I do agree with you. I think people are still trying to go back to that. Well, you're probably not going to get 30 to 1 on him. He's going to take money. And I mean, yeah, sure. If you want to fill at the bottom of a try, sure. But boy, I have a hard time getting him.
Oh, I didn't realize it was 30 to 1. I don't hate that anymore at 30 to 1. I thought it would be like 10 or 12 to 1. So
I think he'll go off at more like 10 or 12 to 1. I can't believe the morning line there's right.
Regardless, this race to me is McKenzie is my strongest A. Vekoma would be my other A. Code of Honor probably would be a single B, and then I would debate using Warrior's Charge and or Mr. Freeze as C's. I may not play C's at all.
Yeah, and I see in the chat a little bit they're talking about if this melts down, like Hog Creek Hustle. Like if this really does melt down, like there's absolutely no reason Code of Honor doesn't win this. Like if this melts down completely, Code of Honor should win. I just don't see it melting down, and I think at these one-turn miles, meltdown. I mean, meltdowns can happen at any distance. I tend to think that they, once you get to like a mile and 16th and longer, you start getting at 2-turn races. I think it becomes a little bit more likely. But if this did melt down, then I think you want Code of Honor here. I don't think you want, you don't want like Endorsed or Hog Creek Hustle. I honestly was thinking of constructing a try and keying Code of Honor like in third, and then putting like the other 4 horses in first and second in McKenzie, Mr. Freeze, Warrior Charge, and Vekoma, and just like hoping that you get either Mr. Freeze or Warrior's Charge in second and get a nice little try there. But yeah, and it looks like John Massey saying that happened to Met Mile with Honor Code, who closed from Montauk. Yeah, I mean, it could happen. But I just don't think that you want Hog Creek Hustle if that melts down. I think you want the classier horse, and that's Code of Honor here.
Yeah, and Bobby Marks brings up Endorsed, and I would take him over Hog Creek Hustle as well. An interesting ride in that last race at Belmont, if you go and watch the replay, where Rosario made a very early big move up the fence, and it almost stole the race. Really a nice move, clever move by Rosario there. Code of Honor just too good. I think my problem is that he couldn't beat Code of Honor with Code of Honor coming off of a layoff and probably not being totally tuned up for this while having better positioning on Code of Honor. Now, granted, maybe Code of Honor runs into trouble here, gets some traffic. These things could happen, but I have a hard time seeing a way Endorsed can beat Code of Honor today if he couldn't get the job done last time with kind of all the breaks going the right way for him.
All right, so Mark, I think I interrupted you. You're about to give your A's, B's, and C's here.
No, really similar to Caleb here. I probably don't use Code of Honor personally. I think I probably end up McKinsey's definitely an A. Vekoma is right on the A-B line, and then I probably want Mr. Freeze as a B, and that's probably is just as deep as I go in here.
Yeah, I mean, I could be just an a-hole and just like single McKinsey here, but I gotta go back and forth and look at it a little bit closer, see how the track's playing, and if we have moisture and stuff like that, it'll change my mind a little bit. If it comes up wet, I mean, I think you move the coma up, right? If it comes up wet, so
endorsed as well.
Yeah, so it comes up a little bit more interesting. So we'll have to see how the weather is, and I know it's tough. I was listening to the oh my god, the In the Money Players podcast today, and they were talking about and it wasn't In the Money, it was Matt Bernier's podcast from last week. He was talking about like public handicappers, and like I guess we kind of do that kind of thing, where we're putting out picks a couple days ahead of time, and it's just always tough because all of a sudden it rains and it's just like, well, we're playing completely different horses in this race, or you get one or two scratches that change the pace scenario and stuff. So it's always important, especially if you're one of our newer viewers or just newer in general. You always take stuff that we say with a grain of salt. Message us, take a look at the Discord, see how we change our minds. I know Mark always posts his tickets. Caleb usually tries to as well. I usually post, if I play anything horizontally, I'll post mine in there. And just kind of see how things change, because, sometimes if for some reason Mr. Freeze or Warriors Charge scratch, this is a completely different game. Mr. Freeze scratches and we get double digits on Warriors Charge, I mean, I'm sending it in. So it just completely, there's a lot of things that can change between today and Saturday. So it's just something to keep in mind. But yeah, I'm pretty much going to be McKinsey, possibly as a single A, and then I'm going to want Vekoma as either an A or a single B, and if I do go to C's, I'll want to use probably Warriors Charge and possibly Mr. Freeze. I usually don't go that deep into C's. I usually try and stay skinny and hit for a higher base, but yeah, I have a hard time getting around McKinsey here, but Vekoma's last race was good enough that I think Vekoma's almost at a must-use status here.
Yeah. So just to answer Stuart's question out of chat, to rate a horse means to take them back. Jack puts a little bit of a hold on the horse, slows them down. Normally is looking to sit behind other horses, and that's the idea of rate. If you have a horse that's sort of a speedball and wants to go, you're putting them into the race by pulling them back a little and sitting off another horse. Hopefully that answers your question.
Caleb has to he had to be right back for a second. I don't know if he had to go to the bathroom or something, but let's see.
Because I mean the next race is all Caleb, so.
Yeah. We couldn't start this race without getting Caleb. The Manhattan, and let's see. Let's take a look. It's a grade 1. Wow, it's weird. It's a stakes race with a condition. Must be at least 4 horses that Caleb absolutely refuses to bet. Huh. That's so weird. Mile and a quarter on the inner turf. Brief side note. I know you kind of mentioned it earlier, Caleb, and I know, Mark, you've been watching Belmont a bit. Inner turf and wide inner turf, how do they play differently?
Well, historically, the inners, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but historically the inner is a little more speed friendly, but I've noticed correct. The Widener has been quite speed friendly lately.
Yeah, I say both of them seem to have been pretty darn speed friendly all meet. Historically, because of the tighter turns and it's more positionally sensitive, it's the same as playing at Saratoga. The inner tends to be more speed favoring than the outer, but you do not want to be out of it. I think the turf is very very firm. We've had a really dry summer so far in the Northeast, have not been getting a lot of rain, and I think that the turf is playing pretty firm. It's not playing deep, and it's been just very speed favoring overall.
Caleb,
So
I
this
think,
race is
yeah,
garbage.
dude, Caleb. I mean, I think it's going to be like therapeutic for you to start this one off. I think
Yeah.
that's really for the good of you and the good of the stream. So
We've been plotting this for Caleb running this race for days now.
Well, it really makes it easier to handicap when you get a race that you can just throw out half the horses immediately because they're all just completely fucking bombs. So you know, you look at okay, like we may as well just go in order. In Stub Regard, I hate this horse, but I don't hate this horse with the passion that I hate other horses in here. Like this horse actually kind of wins sometimes. Like I don't really know what happened in the grade 2 back in fairgrounds. Like, okay, like, not your day. But at least this horse like kind of wins. I don't know what took them so long to put this horse on turf, but once they did, he's done okay. Then you get a horse like, I don't know, the 4, Sadler's Joy. Like, okay, he has one win in his past, I don't care how many starts, because it was against a bunch of horses that he just always beats up on anyway. Red Knight, Channel Maker, all those bums. This horse is 7 years old now. He's 1 for 11 at Belmont. He gets bet every single time. He was a 3-1 favorite last time that ran third. He was 3-1 last time that ran third. 10-1 last time before that ran sixth. And then he actually did get a win as the 7-5 favorites. And then he failed as the 5-2 favorite. You just can't use a horse like this. He burns money. He'll let him beat me. Same thing with Channel Maker, the 6. Channel Maker is actually worse because I've been betting Channel Maker for 2 years based off of a -1 thoroughgraph figure that he ran and has never gotten in the same ballpark.
The Man of War, right? It was that Man of War, right? The
Man of War. He ran a huge race. And he has never got even, I don't even know if he's hit the board since then. He's hit the board once since that race. Yet he continually gets bet. Like this horse used to have some measure of tactical speed, and he just ran 8th in a listed stakes, and he'll probably still end up going off like 5-1 somehow. I don't understand it. Then you get the horse Spooky Channel, who I also really dislike. Mostly, I don't know what Leperoux does on this horse. He sends it when he shouldn't. He rates it when he should send. Okay, he won like a high-level allowance last time, but I mean, who did he really beat? Like Parlor and Hembry? Those are like okay Gulfstream allowance horses or listed stakes. Like just not a good enough horse to win this. Whenever he typically steps up into the bigger ranks, he just doesn't get it done. Sure, some of those Turfway races or Turf Paradise races may have been nice, but he's got one graded stakes win since coming here, and it was at the 1.5 miles at Gulfstream. I'm not using him here, so that makes the race much easier. That being said, my top pick is a new shooter to the horrible older turf marathon division, which is Rock Emperor. I thought he ran a really nice race last time when he shipped out west to Santa Anita. United has a case to be the best older turf horse right now in the country, between him and Zulu Alpha, I guess. And, United won that race, but Rock Emperor was giving him everything he could take. I really thought that was a nice race. I don't think the DQ was particularly warranted, but regardless, it's IRAD in California, so it's a little different. This is my top pick here. The only problem is he is kind of a dead closer, and there really isn't any speed here. So he could be up against it from a pace perspective, but I think he is probably the horse with the most right to step forward and should love the distance. That's kind of my top pick. Beyond that, I'm probably going to look at playing some of the speeds or the horses that I think are the speeds, because there are no true speed horses here, which might be like the 3 Cross Border and then the 7 Dot Matrix. Like neither one are true speed horses, but both of them are probably going to be somewhat forwardly placed. Dot Matrix in particular ran a nice race last out when there was that horse Parrot or Parade or whatever his name was that like 50-1 that wired that race on a loose lead. And Dot Matrix was the one who really kind of made up the most ground that day. Like Sadler's Joy also, I guess, came from out of it as well, but he was never really threatening the top two. So I like Dot Matrix most of the speed horses. Rosario hops off, so it's not a huge concern because Flo's ridden this horse to a victory before. I don't really think this horse is good enough, but he may just get the right pace set up and get a little bit lucky. But yeah, for me, it's Rock Emperor, the two speeds, and then I may even be convinced to use a horse like Devamani. But I would use any of them before I would use the miserable bunch of Sadler's Joy, Channel Maker, Spooky Channel. And I'm really not a big fan of Instilled Regard, but he might squeeze onto my ticket somewhere.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I expected we would get. A good Caleb Brandt, and yeah, that was spot on. That was must see YouTube right there. No, I mean I'm very much in the same boat as Caleb right here. Instilled Regard to me is not the Chad of the three Chads that I want. I want Rock Emperor, and I want a little bit of Devamini. I agree with Caleb. I think Rock Emperor is probably my top pick. He ran a sneaky good race last out. Probably is an improving horse going into his kind of a developing as a 4-year-old, which is when most horses sort of reach peak. And I really like him in here. I think he's got every right to move forward again, and I think this sort of distance really hits him right kind of square between the eyes. I think this is what he really wants, is even a little more distance than he got last out. Or I guess we are a mile and a quarter, so yeah, same distance he got right last out. But the other horses that I want in here are, I want a little bit of Devamini. Probably ends up being a B on my ticket. And the other one I want, because I know Caleb was talking, there's absolutely no speed in here, and figuring out who ends up on the lead here is really hard. I would really like to see them send Dot Matrix, and not full send, but get Flo to put him on the lead and let him get loose, clear by a length or two. And I think this horse has every ability to do that and might be able to just steal us on the front end. And, those are my three horses I want the most of. I may get really cute here and buy the rest of the race as a C, but, but I think this race goes through sort of one of those three, because I just don't. I know Caleb says talking about Instilled Regard being good since I put him on turf. He's 2 for 7 on turf. He's only 4 for 17 lifetime. I mean, he's been better on turf in regard to figs. He hasn't been a winner though. He hasn't been a horse they've figured out what he wants to do. He's obviously very talented, but he almost falls into that sort of as much as I hate to say it, Sadler's Joy is 7 for 29 and's got 7 wins on the turf. So I don't think he's better. And I also think Channel Maker, same thing, 5 for 32 lifetime, 5 wins on the turf. I don't think Instilled Regard is that great. It looks like morning line favorite in here, or is Devamini? Instilled Regard is morning line favorite, but
2-1.
Yeah, and I think that's an absolute joke. There's no way in the world I would bet on him at 2-1. I think that's insanity.
He's going to be shorter.
He probably is going to be shorter, and he's a horse that he's a B at best. I just can't get
if you look at the pedigree of the Chads, Rock Emperor obviously wants to go this far. And then Devamani is the next horse that wants to go this far. I mean, he's got the Dubawi on top. I mean, the Selkirk. I don't know who that horse is, but based off the Brisnet pedigree, average winning distance of the offspring is 8.8 furlongs. Like, this horse has a win going 1.25 miles. Like, this is the horse that wants to go this far. Then you look at a horse like Instilled Regard with Forestry on the bottom, which is a big time speed influence. And the one time they tried stretching him out past 1 1/8 miles, he was 4th by 3/4 of a length, going 1 3/16 miles, 3 back at Gulfstream, and then he fades 2 lengths between the stretch and the final call. Devamani was screaming on his heels late in that last race and was going to pass him in 2 more jumps. Like, I don't think Instilled Regard is the horse that you want going this distance.
Yeah, and Instilled Regard's also Arch on the top, which is not a known distance pedigree either, quite honestly. So yeah, I don't know if he wants this distance, and honestly, I just don't think. I was joking around in this race. I almost wonder, not that you would do this. I mean, I guess you could, is Instilled Regard sort of the setup horse for somebody like a Rock Emperor in here? Is he's the speediest of the Chads? Is he in here to create an honest pace for the other two, which need a pace to run into? There's an argument to be made that it's might be that way.
I mean, so Aidan O'Brien is like really famous for doing this in the UK, where he has like 3 horses in the race, and he's got a front runner, he's got like a middle paced horse, and then he's got a closer, right? And he just lets them run their race. So like if the front horse just gets loose and just goes and wins, all right. But he knows that that horse is just going to go and is going to set an honest pace, you know. And in the UK, you know, those trainers, they use rabbits all the time. They use them differently than like, you know, how blatant Chad does, like where he had Thace last year, where Thace just fucking went and just like ran off. Like, you know, they're like a trainer like Aidan O'Brien uses a rabbit, quote unquote, but the rabbit can still win the race. And I kind of agree with you, Mark. Like, maybe they just tell a rad, hey, get the horse to the lead and see what happens.
Let him roll.
Get the horse to the lead and see
let him roll.
If he wins, he wins. I mean, like, Instilled Regard is probably good enough here to win. I know as much as you trash the horse, I mean, the horse has got 2 grade 2 wins. I mean, it doesn't seem completely out of it here. This isn't exactly a real strong field. We'll talk about a couple. I'll talk real quick about a couple of the throwaway horses. Sadler's Joy. If you bet Sadler's Joy in any race that's not at least 3 turns, you deserve to lose any money you bet. The only time that you could ever bet Sadler's Joy is if we're talking an extreme marathon distance that's at least 3 turns. Do not bet Sadler's Joy in 2 turns.
But it's also a match race with Orklow, Channel Maker, and whoever the fuck the last one was. Who else do I hate? I forget.
You hate Zulu Alpha too, but Zulu Alpha is now like the best turf horse out there. So, I mean, I don't know what you're gonna do about that.
By the way, to answer Bobby Marks's question in chat, Julien Leperoux will not be on the front. In all theory, sure, Spooky could probably make the lead in here, and probably that's Spooky's best chance of winning is to get on the lead. Julian's the jock. It's not going to happen.
No, I agree with Caleb, dude. No one has any fucking clue what Julian's going to do. Look at the horse's past performances. All of a sudden, I think in the Pan American, we thought he was going to rate a little bit, and then he sent. And it was just like, what the heck?
It's Julian in New York. He'll be last by 30 lengths and will make 1 run. That's what he's going to do.
Nobody knows what Julian's going to do, including Julian. We just get to wait and find out.
I mean, I have a hard time making a case for for many of these horses. I mean, I'm going to use Instilled Regard. I think that this horse, as far as recent form, is probably the classiest of the horses here. I mean, most of the other horses have, you know, been sitting around, finishing second, finishing, you know, not really winning, you know, but Instilled Regard, at least in the past, year, has won 2 grade 2s. So, I guess you'd say that this is the classiest. The horse didn't embarrass himself at the Pacific Turf. I mean, lost to Zulu Alpha, who, like I said, is probably the best turf horse going, with maybe the exceptions of United, and Magic Wand, who, if Magic Wand didn't let the rail open for Zulu Alpha, might have won that race, and is a legitimate horse. I think you got to use Instilled Regard. I just think it's, if you use them, like, you got to make a decision how you're going to use them. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how short this horse is going to be. 2-1 in the morning line. What's up?
Does your turf division only include males at marathon distances? Because
well, if we're talking longer, races, because I mean,
there's quite a few horses I would put ahead of those.
Well, yeah, like Uni and
Uni, or honestly, recently Newspaper of Record, or there's a list that I think are, you know, I honestly think there's some fillies that if they dropped them in this race would have been super competitive, but Chad's got a barn with a couple of them in it.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna focus most of my stuff through Instilled Regard and not feel great about it. I think that you got to use horses like Rock Emperor and Devamani as well. So this might be one of those races where you don't let Chad beat you, which I hate. But if I got narrow here, I think I would get narrow with a horse like Instilled Regard, and I wouldn't, but I wouldn't feel great about it. So I don't think that this is the place where I get narrow. The other horse that I would use, and I know Caleb, you touched on this horse a little bit, I think, and that's the 3 Cross Border. I'm gonna guess that this is the horse that's gonna get the lead. Uh, I'm not really sure. I really have a hard time trying to figure out, because I could easily see someone like Spooky Channel get into the lead, but Julian gonna Julian, so I can't really trust that. Flo might send Dot Matrix. I mean, maybe Channel Maker decides to show speed again at some point, but I think that Cross Border has got the most consistent early speed. So, I mean, maybe Cross Border gets loose and just goes. So, you got Michael Maker second off the layoff as a plus angle. Jose and Mike Maker usually hit at a pretty decent rate. You got Michael Maker on a turf horse going long. I mean, that is his thing. And he's done better. He's done better in New York. Especially last year, I know he did better, and he's been doing a little bit better this year. He's hitting at 16% on this meet. So yeah, I mean, I'll take a shot with Cross Border to see if he can wire this field, and then I'll probably use the other 3 Chads here. The only other horse I would be somewhat interested in, it would be Channel Maker, but I just don't think I can bring myself to do it. I've been disappointed way too many times. I've tried it. I've tried it so many times already, and I just don't think it's gonna happen. So,
Channel Maker's one of those horses that puts up figs. He looks the part. You're like, oh, next time's the time, and then it's 20 races go by and he hasn't won. It's just since what, his Man of War?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we just keep on hoping and praying we get that Man of War, and that price just keeps on getting higher. That's the problem. Is now he's at 10-1 on the morning line. You're like, well, if I bet him last time at 3-1, I mean at 10-1, I gotta bet him, right? So, yeah.
Now he goes off 5-1.
He's going to take money in here, guaranteed. You won't get 10-1 on him. Like what Caleb said, he probably won't be 5-1, but 6-7-1, that sort of range, I can definitely see on him. Again, this is another race that I think the board is pretty bad, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if Sadler's Joy is really 7-2, then I think if you take the 3 Chads, I think you made the right choice. If Sadler's Joy really takes that much money and you're getting like 9-2, if you're getting 4-1 on 2 of the Chads, and you're getting like a short price on one of them, like I think that you should feel happy. Now they're all going to play way shorter, I think, in the horizontals, but if one of these Chad horses speaks to you and you get a fair price, you get a square price like a 4-1 on it, I think that that's definitely win bettable. So pick your Chad, watch the price, and take your shot there on a win bet. But I definitely think all 3 of them are usable horizontally.
Yeah, I will be win betting Rock Emperor at 5-1 or better. I'll throw that out there right now.
I'll be betting as little on this race as possible. Just getting through it for the horizontals.
I mean, if Cross Border doesn't take any money, and the turf is playing a little speed favoring, I would maybe get a little speculative with a win bet, or maybe if the odds were good enough, a win place bet or an exacta key with it. But yeah, I have a hard time getting around the 3 Chads. The only other horse I'm kind of interested in would be Cross Border. And you guys seem like you're pretty set on the other Chads not named in Still Regard.
I'll use Instilled Regard, but probably defensively. He'll be probably a B. But I will have the other 2 Chads as A's, along with, I've always had a thing for Dot Matrix, so I'll probably have him as an A as well.
Yeah, I have Instilled Regard as like my 4th pick, maybe. I like Rock Emperor, Devamani, Cross Border, and Dot Matrix better. So I guess 5th pick. Like, I just don't know if I'll go 5 deep. I might just use all the horses that aren't Sadler's Joy and Channel Maker and Spooky Channel.
Yeah, and again, and in the pick 5, because I think this is a sequence I'm going to be a little skinny in. I don't think this is a real like spendy pick 5. I'll probably buy this race as C's, just to have that coverage.
All right, let's get to the classic race here, the Suburban, Grade 2, 1.25 miles, 4-year-olds and up. and we got takeout reducer Tacitus as the morning line favorite here. Who's gonna bet Tacitus again? Thank the Lord. Oh man, I'll tell you what.
So what will he do to finish second? That's really the question. What stupid thing will Tacitus do to prove that he is a
They're putting the blinkers on. He's gonna like pull and be rank early or like go too fast.
I saw that. I couldn't believe it. The blinks back on.
That's a terrible decision. I mean, I'm the part of it, but that just seems awful.
I saw that and it blew my mind. Look at his 2 races he ran. I mean, he just about tried to run off in the Travers, and in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, he was a massive head case and blew himself up. Both times they've tried to run him with blinks, he is not rateable. You can't run. He wants to just go. What are they doing? I mean, Belmont's better than that.
I love it. I love that they put the blinkers back on because I have even less inclination to try and bet this horse. If Tacitus sends in this race is melting down. Like, this race is melting down, and my boy Sir Winston is going to come in with Joel Rosario from the back of the pack and just fucking pick up the pieces. Because Mr. Buff has got to go. Jovia has got to go. Tacitus with the blinkers is going to want to go. And, I mean, Parsimony, I don't know what the hell he's going to do, but he's probably going to go because I think Mooch is riding him. So, I mean, this thing's going to melt, right? Like, you're going to get someone coming off the pace, I think, here. And I just think that this screams Sir Winston. I love the price on Sir Winston in the morning line. 7-2, I think, is more than fair. I think that this is going to be a real good spot for him. And if I think there's a meltdown happening and there's a closer and I see Rosario aboard, I mean, it's just like the match made in heaven. It's like Mooch on a speed horse and lone speed, and hopefully that pays off at some point in the next couple of days because it's burned me a couple times. But yeah, I think this sets up really nicely for Sir Winston. One thing that did pop out at me a little bit. And I kind of want to get your guys' opinion on this. What is your guys' opinion about Irad getting on Just Whistle?
Did he have another mount this race? I didn't think he did.
Yeah, that was my understanding that he didn't have another mountain here, and there was nobody that he's sort of, like the go-to jock for who's going to put him up just because.
It's just interesting. Like you would think that he would have at least like a slightly better horse in this race to be able to hop on. I mean, I know like Johnny V's been on Tacitus the past couple times, or at least last time. I know Jose Ortiz was on him before, but like Irad's on Just Whistle, and then Jose's on Jovia. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's some weird jock shenanigans. You would think that that they'd have slightly better. Slightly better mounts here, but
before to like an okay 5th by 3rd way back at Pimlico, and I think that's the only horse he's actually ridden before in this field. He doesn't have any of his usual first call, trainers. No Chad Browns in here or anybody, so it's not that surprising to me. Like, I don't like the horse, and the fact that Irad gets on actually kind of makes me happy because I think the horse will take more money than it should just because Irad is there. But I don't necessarily look at it and think like, oh, like Irad knows something and this horse is actually super live. I just think he didn't have a mount and this is the best he could do.
Yeah, like these races are the races I always have a problem with because I generally hold and I always blank on his name because I'm awful with names. Who's the morning line maker again for Nairo?
David
Aragona. I hold David Aragona in pretty high regard. I like listening to their podcast. What he does with the Timeform US Pacecast. I always forget the other guy. Craig. Thank you. See, I'm awful with names. I always hold them in really high regard. I think in general he does a pretty good job with the morning lines. I know he can't look at the works always, and he gets other things. He misses, and just like everybody does. I mean, you're guessing what the public's going to do. That's fine. But man, the 2 morning line favorites in this race, I absolutely hate in Tacitus and Mr. Buff. I do not want any of them in this race. So this is like either he just got it completely wrong, or this is going to be a race that we're going to make some money on. Mark, what do you think?
I like Mr. Buff, and I like him quite a lot in here. Yeah, there goes Josh. No, I mean, I think if you look at optics, this race comes back as being a race that, albeit it shows a lot of paper, or it shows a lot of potential speed on paper. I think Mr. Buff is the speed of the speed. He's never tried this distance before. I don't see any reason why he can't stretch out. He's done, quite well at a mile and an eighth. I don't think the extra eighth hurts him here, and especially when it's only, a turn and a half, mile and a quarter. And his figs just jump off the page at you. He's thrown up a bunch of figs recently that have been just monsters. He's second off the layoff here. I know Alvarado's phenomenal with John Kimmel. I think he really gets the horse. Now, he's the quintessential horse of, can he step up to the big leagues? His Clark was a flop. But when he's running sort of in the, overnight stakesy G3 world, he's a horse that throws up some massive figs. I'm going to give him a shot here once again, and Josh can, whatever, look down at me upon it for that.
I'm just really confused because I don't see a little S with a square next to Suburban. So I don't think this is a New York bred race.
That's a valid, it's a valid point. Yeah, I mean, he's been a horse that's thrown up some great figs, but he's sort of shown his face when he's been in the deep end of the pool. I just don't want anybody else in here. I don't want Tacitus. I don't know why Persimmon is even here. Forewarned just isn't fast enough. Jovia, I don't see a setup where Jovia can win. I know that's your horse, Josh. Sir Winston, okay, maybe you can get there if it really completely collapses, but unless Tacitus, there's, he is by Tappet, so maybe he does go full stupid and goes full send, and then, him and Mr. Buff blow each other up, but that's like, I have to go 3 steps to get there. I'm just going to take the logical horse and, use Mr. Buff. I want a little bit of Moretti underneath, and I want a little Sir Winston underneath, probably his B's, and that's it.
Well, I heard Mark say he was taking Mr. Buff, and I just had to walk out of the room for a minute. I don't, I look at this race and I see Mr. Buff, and I'm like, all right, maybe he steals it at 8 or 10 to 1. And then I see Josh pull up the PPs and show that this horse was 2 to 1. Is that right?
Yep, 2 to 1.
2 to 1.
That is just asinine. I completely agree with Josh that this horse has no rights to be favorite, co-favorite, or probably single digits against this field. I don't, he has the knocks, okay, he only wins in state bred company. I get that. And while I think that definitely carries weight, at least the 2 races he had that against open company, the Woodward and the Clark, were very legit grade 1s. This is a very soft grade 2, in my opinion. So I don't necessarily think that he just can't beat open company. To me, I don't just think he's quite that good overall, and I don't know about him going a mile and a quarter. He does have Spadestown on the bottom side of his pedigree, which does not suggest he wants a classic distance. He's 6 years old. He's made over $1 million. He's been raced 37 times, and they're just now deciding he's a marathoner. I don't really buy it. I think they just maybe wanted to take a shot, maybe see how the race turns up. If the track comes up really speed friendly, sure, I could see it. I don't think this race melts. I don't think there's that much speed here, honestly. I think Mr. Buff gets very clear. I don't think Jovia is really going to be sent to go along with Mr. Buff. And Tacitus may try, but even if he tries with the blinkers, I just don't think he's fast enough. So I don't really think there's going to be a pace meltdown, but I also just think that the horse that loves going kind of this distance and that makes the most sense is Sir Winston. I don't think he necessarily needs a complete nuclear pace meltdown to hit the board or to win here. I think that his Belmont kind of proved, running into a measured pace, he was able to get the win there, going a mile and a half. Tossed the turf experiment for whatever reason that was, came back with a nice win at Aqueduct. And then the Belmont race last out was a bit of a head scratcher. You could argue he maybe just didn't care for the slop. Maybe it was just tough to close that day with the sealed surface. Because the other horse I like in here was the horse that beat him that day, which was the 8, Moretti. That horse made the lead, was 2 lengths clear, and just never looked back. I usually hate betting horses that come off of running lines like that because it seems like they're flattered by the fact that they were just completely alone on the front. But this horse has stepped up quite a bit in his last 2 starts. I don't like him as much here as I do Sir Winston. I do think Sir Winston is the horse to beat, but Moretti does have more tactical speed that he can use if the pace ends up being on the more moderate side. He should have first run over Sir Winston. I just kind of think Sir Winston's the better horse. Those are the 2 horses that I was probably going to use the most. I'm not touching Tacitus. I think Parsimony's at the complete toss. I was high on Jovia last out in that Westchester race. The horse didn't even make the lead somehow, and kind of flopped and disappointed me. I have a hard time going back there now with faster speeds signed on. I don't think I can really get there. So to me, the race really goes through Sir Winston, a little bit of Moretti, and then beyond that, I'm looking at probably not horizontally, but vertically throwing a horse like the 3 forewarned in underneath. He looks too slow on figs, but the horse does like to win, and the 2 horses that beat him last time would probably be favored in this spot. He was 5.5 lengths clear of the 4th place finisher while kind of closing on a moderate pace at 60-1. I just think he's got a win over this distance before, albeit against state breds. I'm not saying this horse wins because I'm probably not going to use him in horizontals, but I'd probably take a horse like him at 30-1 before I would take Tacitus at 9-5 to hit the board.
So Caleb, I don't know what Briz looks like, but with Moretti, doesn't he have to find about? I mean, I did say I liked him, so I'm not bashing you, but doesn't he have to find about 10 buyer speed points? I mean, if you toss his last race in the slop where he freaked, he's about 10 points behind what it probably takes to win this, isn't he?
Yeah, I think really if you're looking at the Briz numbers, both. So that last race, Moretti came back pretty fast. It was a 102. Brisnet sloppy numbers are always kind of artificially quick, I've noticed, on off tracks. If you're a big figs guy, then I think, which I know, Mark, you are, I think you go to Mr. Buff because he has about 4 races in his past 6 that would probably win. To me, I'm not as big on the figs because if I am, then I think Tacitus is the other horse that you probably want. But I just think that Sir Winston and Moretti kind of are trending the right direction with still some maybe untapped potential, some upside there. Whereas a horse like Mr. Buff, I'm not quite so sure that's going to be the case when he's trying something new.
Like Tacitus is the horse that I'm going to let beat me like 2 or 3 times before I learn my lesson. If he's going to be favored here, I don't know. I just think that Sir Winston's going to provide. I think Sir Winston's got a better chance at winning and is going to be a better price. So I just have a hard time trying to get to Tacitus. And in that case, I don't want to use a horse like that horizontally, just in case he wins this one. I'll take my L. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I just think that that Jovia's only option is to go. I think we said that last time at the Westchester that Jovia had to go and didn't go. Yeah, I think there is a little bit more speed here than might meet the eye. We'll see how Moretti goes and if he's going to try and send and get the lead or sit off. But it does look like Moretti is more of the push button type, the EP type. So probably doesn't need the lead. But yeah, it'll just be interesting kind of how this sets up pace-wise. But briefly looking at it on paper, I think that this does set up for Sir Winston. And I just think that Sir Winston, I think Sir Winston is probably the best horse in this race, even tossing out the pace scenario. What do you guys think if Code of Honor ran here instead of the Met Mile? You think he'd be the clear favorite here, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I would like him a lot better here.
Yeah, he'd be favored, and he'd probably be a single.
Yeah, it's interesting that they went the Met Mile. I mean, I know the Met Miles, usually top 5 races.
For pedigree or for stallion prospects at this point. That's one of the races you really want to win if you're thinking about breeding prospects.
Yeah, that's one of the 4 races in American racing that you want to win if you're thinking about breeding prospects. So for them, that's they're taking a stab there because it doesn't hurt them, but there's definitely upside. Winning the Suburban, yeah, they win a little money, but they're thinking about the barn more than they are anything else. And also, Dennis is asking, what odds would you need on Tacitus for a win bet? For me, he'd probably have to be 5-1, 6-1 range, that sort of a range for me to win bet him.
That's probably right. Objectively, I don't like a lot of the horses here. Like, I don't like Just Whistle. I don't really like Jovia. I don't like Forewarned. I don't like Parsimony. So he's no worse than the bottom half of the field. So I think in the ballpark of 5 or 6-1, he starts to get a little interesting. But to me, it's not so much a matter of price as it is just the horse seems like a head case, and he's just making an equipment change that's going to make him more of a head case, and I just can't really go there because I know I'm not going to get 5-1.
He would be my 4th choice in this race. So whatever, what's 4th choice here? 5-1, yeah. So probably 5-1 is probably what I would need. 4-1, 5-1.
I don't believe that these are terrible lines. I think Tacitus probably does go off favored. That might be right, but I think Sir Winston probably goes second choice, and then maybe like Mr. Buff and Moretti. I can't imagine you get anything near 7-2 on Sir Winston.
Yeah, I have a hard time with your Sir Winston. I mean, I realize you're going to beat up my Mr. Buff because you just don't think he can get the distance, and he beats up on state breds. But with Sir Winston, okay, he ran his Belmont. What's the other race? An optional 80? His flat out was probably okay. There's some arguments to say that maybe he didn't handle the surface, that kind of thing. You look back to his Peter Pan for the other impressive race. Like, I realize he's done okay across the Belmont surface, but what's, beyond his Belmont, which sort of fell into his lap because Tacitus is a head case. What's the other race there?
Well, I'm sure if Sir Winston ran in the Haynesfield B 100K state bred, he would probably have won that race. Or the Alex M. Robb B, Saginawa B. These other very prestigious races. I think he might have a couple more wins under his belt.
I'm debating about a terrible prop bet choice right now.
Mr. Buff versus Sir Winston.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that.
Yeah, honestly, to me, it's more of a I hate everybody kind of situation that forces my hand. Like, Tacitus might objectively have the most talent in this field, but he has yet to put it together, and he's going to be a short price. You can't use Parsimony. You can't use Forewarned. Mr. Buff, okay, maybe. Like Jovia, I have a hard time going there. Just Whistle, no. And then Moretti, maybe. But the same argument that you make against Sir Winston, you can make probably doubly against Moretti. So it's one of those things that it's like, who do you hate the least? And for me, I think that's Sir Winston. So this might be one of those races I actually just single Sir Winston and kind of live or die with it.
Bobby B. Marks is mentioning that Sir Winston was on the gold rail during the Belmont. So
that he was.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I guess Mr. Buff would be like the 3rd horse I'd take in here, but I'm taking Sir Winston and Moretti before I'm taking Mr. Buff. I'll take Mr. Buff in front of Tacitus. If we really like, if you want me to say something positive about Mr. Buff, but I really think pace wise that this is just not gonna. Mr. Buff's gonna have a hard go of it, but. We'll see. I've misread pace scenarios many times before. So if Mr. Buff does get an easy lead, I can see him winning this, but I just don't think that that's going to happen.
So interesting that you and I think, see the pace quite differently, but end up on the same horse nonetheless.
Well, Mark, I don't know if we want to go back and talk about the third race, but we probably spent about 30 seconds on it and said Frank's Rocket. Did you see any?
The allowance race?
No, it's the victory race, the graded stakes race that they put.
Frank's
Yeah,
Rocket.
with no show wagering.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have a really hard time getting around that horse. That not a lot needs to be said. I mean, if you're not using Frank's Rocket, you're buying the race with the field in some sort of a contrarian, game theory play.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we got through those. Oh,
Mark, did you cap the 8th? The Joker?
I did. I don't remember what I capped it as.
You have a hot take?
I don't really think I had a hot take. Where'd you guys end up?
We both Got Stormy, and I'm going to have some money going through a long shot Hawkish, the 3-horse. But I think you could honestly make a case for every horse in this race. It's definitely a spread race.
Yeah, it's interesting that Stormy scratched for this spot. I mean, I think they're trying to find a firmer turf for Stormy, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's what we thought
from
too.
What you said, and I think they get it here. Judging by the rain, I think they'll get that firmer going here. I think 7-1 or 7-2 on the morning line is sort of hilarious. I think that horse goes off at half that, but I mean, Got Stormy is a class of the field here. You can make a case for a lot of these as sort of that taking that next step forward, but I would probably single A Got Stormy, and I mean maybe you could use value proposition as an A as well, but beyond that, I'd have to get pretty spread, or I'd have to sort of buy the rest.
Dude, I'm looking at the chat and what Caleb and I talked about before. Like, I already see the entire Discord being on Hawkish and just being disappointed. It's going to be the horse that the entire Discord's on at double digits, and it's just going to not run a lick.
What's the logic on Hawkish? I don't get that horse at all.
A 4 for 5 at the distance.
Are we back class? Is that what we're going with here?
4 for 5 at the distance. I mean,
distance.
What happened the last 3 though?
Not at the distance, and then 8-month layoff, and then 7 furlongs, probably a little bit too short, but was stepping forward and closing late. Third off the layoff here, at the right distance with a jock upgrade for an off the pace turf horse, and you're getting 15-1.
Okay.
We also heard that the printer wasn't working at Belmont. They need a little toner.
Oh my God, that was bad.
That was horrible.
Hey, he's due. He's 0 for 7, right?
It was bad because I didn't know where you were going with it.
No, I actually liked Hawkish too, as kind of like a longer price. I was, and just briefly, I was pretty much all on Got Stormy. I think maybe you use value proposition as well, but I think I would feel pretty good. Got Stormy might be my single here.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about it. I've started kind of rethinking how I play some horizontals, and I really think that if there is a race where maybe there's 3 short price horses, I think that there's more value in trying to single one of those 3 shorter priced horses and moving on and spreading in the other legs than there is just taking the 3 logical horses. So I think here, you could probably make a case for the 2 Chads. I really don't like Valid Point here. I know Dennis did mention that, was steadied, but that horse lost me a lot of money, and I'll never forgive him for that. So I kind of landed on Got Stormy as a possible single. If the turf isn't super speed favoring, I'll probably also toss in Social Paranoia as an A, and probably value proposition, but I think my 2 top choices are Got Stormy and Social Paranoia here.
Yeah, I'm very much the same. I don't know how Got Stormy probably in value proposition, but I think Stormy ends up being probably a single A, and then I use value proposition as a single B, and maybe get spready as a C. You can buy a bunch of these, but there's a bunch of these that sort of need to step forward. And if you like back class, Got Stormy's got a ton of it. So
yeah, I'm hoping we can get some prices. I feel like Belmont lately has been tough to come by on the price front. Looking at this pick 4, and now these are only the morning lines, not what's actually going to happen, but Got Stormy seems like it doesn't seem super likely to get a price in race 8 between Got Stormy and the Chads. But race 9 does not seem likely for a price with McKenzie and Vekoma and Code of Honor and company. But I do think you can get a price in race 10 and race 11. Like race 10, you already know my thoughts on all of those. I guess they're horses technically. And race 11, given the morning lines with Mr. Buff and Tacitus, if those are remotely accurate, then I'll be getting somewhat of a price there. So hopefully we can find a way to avoid getting chalked out here in the sequence. But it does feel like one of those days where I invent cases to beat Chad Brown and he wins every turf race.
Well, because we think that those prices are so short, I mean, is there a price in like the 7th race you think that, for building a pick 5? Is there somewhere else you can go in the 7th race to maybe get a little value and play the pick 5 instead of the pick 4?
The 7th race felt pretty logical to me. It's sort of, point them out, Dante's Fire. And beyond that, maybe a little of Danfusi as well. Probably as a B with Danfusi, but besides that, I didn't really get super creative in that race. I had a hard time. A lot of horses that don't love getting their picture taken in that race.
Yeah, I haven't handicapped it. I mean, glancing at the optics, it seems like the 8 could be a little interesting, as well as maybe the 6 and 7. But
yeah, the 8 Danfusi with Rosario aboard on what looks to be the speed of the speed. So he's gonna rate the horse and put him like.
Yeah, and also Caleb's favorite angle of Maiden Breaker last out. So.
I didn't look at the race. I'm just looking at the optics, and he seems to be I wouldn't call him lone speed, but I don't think the 6 can go with him, so he might be lone speed.
Yeah, I would agree. He may be lone speed.
I mean, leaving a key race too. The horse that finished second to him won last out. So.
I think, yeah, just a second. Okay, I was thinking the 3rd it did as well. But.
Yeah, Barl won or something like that.
Barley won or something.
Beyond that, there's a lot of horses that are, sort of Josh horses, 3 for 33, 1 for 16.
I love how those are Josh horses.
The horses that Josh loves, 5 for 60. Those types of horses that Josh just salivates over.
The ones that I just like block, and I'm like, oh, I like this horse, and then Caleb's like, you do realize that horse is 1 for 37, right?
But yeah, I mean, there's a horse that's 2 for 11 that's 4 to 1 on the morning line, so it tells you all you need to know about this race. But I think those 3, point them out. Dante's Fire, probably, and then I use Danfusi as a B. I understand you guys are the speed case, but I think I'll take a horse that's faced winners once before.
Dude, I'm gonna take a look and see what that 8-7 double pays next that race, because I don't know. Looking at Danfusi a little closer on Briz, I mean, on Briz, he seems to kind of tower over the rest of the.
You realize
no, it's a he's originally. Sorry,
it's a he. You realize Clement is 3% on second off 100 greater than 180-day layoff, right?
Yeah, it's fine, but him and Rosario are 24%. That's bigger than 3%.
Math checks out.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm glad Josh is using math here. That fixed it. Okay, obviously, Goosey's your horse. Go. You have fun, Josh.
Hey, you gotta find value somewhere, even if it's
on a 4 to 1 morning line horse. That's not value.
Oh, Mark, what am I gonna do with you?
That race sucks. Like, I'm glancing over it now. Like, I don't want to bet that race.
It does. It's one of those allowance races at Belmont where you sort of like pinch your nose and go, "Oh."
How was the state bred races too?
Don't pick on state breds,
Mr. Buff. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for us. We got through this at a reasonable time, an hour and a half. I think we're getting more efficient. We didn't get through 8 races like we did last week, but we did get through 6. So, anything else that you guys are going to be playing this weekend, or is pretty much Belmont it? I think Belmont's it for me. Maybe
Belmont's probably it for me as well. Maybe a little LaSalle if the pick place looks good, but beyond that, probably just Belmont.
Yeah, probably Belmont for me. No Churchill. I'm not going to touch a Gulfstream, so probably just Belmont. I will say that I watched a little bit of the LaSalle thoroughbred meet today and a little bit last weekend. I haven't really bet much. It does seem that there's starting to be a outside closer bias that's starting to develop on that track. So I might keep an eye on that, and if it seems like that's still the way things are playing, I may spot play a couple races. But that's not a track that I really enjoy playing, so I won't be putting a ton of effort into it.
Yeah, that bias is not unique to the just to the thoroughbred meet. That's
It's also
the quarter horses as well. So the outside has been very, very good in the quarters. So yeah, keep that in mind. It's got to be how they maintain the track during this meet. But every time that they start the thoroughbred meetup, the outside gets really good in the quarters.
I think I played a pick 3, like the 2 outside horses, the 3 outside horses, the 3 outside horses, and it was easy money at at Los Al. So yeah, it definitely was playing to the outside a little bit. So keep an eye on that. John is asking about Ellis. No, I don't. I want to look at Ellis, but I think that my money would be better served looking at Belmont. Bobby's saying Monmouth. Monmouth opens this weekend?
I think it may. It's about right. Yeah.
Wait, isn't there I think Delaware has a good card tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. Don't they have like the Delaware
Yeah, the Delaware Oaks is it tomorrow or Saturday?
I'm sorry, Saturday. Yeah, Saturday.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, if I was going to look at a second track after Belmont for the weekend, I've really actually enjoyed Delaware. I would probably look there.
What
Monmouth does open tomorrow, so you are correct.
What's running tomorrow? Or is Belmont doing anything tomorrow? Or is they have any?
Yeah, I think it's a stake spread card though. It's one of their sort of feature day cards as a prep to the big cigar mile card. So
okay, yeah, that'll be interesting to watch. Then that's probably why I'll play. I'll play tomorrow. Then I got the day off tomorrow, so I'll be around most of the day. I think.
Also the day off. So
if play weather holds up, if it gets sloppy enough the turf, that'll be kind of disappointing.
So. But yeah, so I saw Chase was in chat for a little bit. Shout out Chase, feel better, get that epidural, and hopefully you'll get your golf swing back. But yeah, we're on the wrong lead. You can catch us at ontherwronglead.com. We're always in Discord and on Twitter at wrong_lead. Obviously, you guys found our YouTube channel. We'll be posting more Fast Fives and other videos on there. And if you check our description, we do have a link to sign up for AM Wager. I know, Mark, you did a video on AM Wager and kind of did a walkthrough of their stuff. They have a pretty good bonus, so you get the full bonus, and all it does is it helps us out a little bit. And it's giving us money without having to actually like take money out of your pocket. It's money you probably would be spending already. So take a look at that. And then we still have our merch. I know Mark and I are wearing matching shirts. And I do have another shirt idea, and I will try and get that up. I think this weekend. I'll probably start working on it tomorrow. So I'll get that up, and then I'll probably post that on Twitter. But yeah, for Mark and Caleb, I'm Josh, and we'll catch you guys later.